Well, good morning everybody, and welcome once again to another episode of the Fells of Great Britain. Today I'm in the Lake District again, my usual haunt, and I've decided to do a walk in the far eastern fells as Wainwright describes them. And the route today takes me up a small ridge called Riggindale and onto one of the interestingly named mountains in the Lake District called High Street. I'll explain a bit later why it has almost an urban name. It's not Celtic, it's not local, it's just called the High Street, and of course all towns have high streets. Well, it turns out that the Lake District has a high street as well. So let's take a look at the map and the route for today, and I'll catch you later.
The Lake District National Park lies in the north of England in the county of Cumbria. The walk starts in the far eastern fells of the Lake District at the western end of the HAWESWATER reservoir. Crossing the footbridge over Mardale Beck, we turn northeast and walk along the shore of HAWESWATER to a small wooded area called the Rig. We then turn west and head up Dudderwick Ridge, passing Swine Crag and Heron Crag along the way. The path is easy but very steep and well defined, and we enjoy fabulous views over Riggindale towards Kidsey Pike and south across Mardale and HAWESWATER Reservoir to Mardale Ill Bell and Harter Fell, which can be seen in the far distance across the valley. After a mile or so walking along this ridge, we reach Rough Crag, from where we gain views of Riggindale Crag, the apex of our walk today. At the tarn on Riggindale Crag, we turn southeast and drop down to Blea Water Tarn. This descent is very steep, but again the path is clearly defined. At the weir at the eastern end of Blea Water, we turn east and head down into Mardale Valley, eventually joining a path that runs along the northern flank of Mardale Beck, which will take us back to the car park at Mardale Head. This final leg of our route today is extremely wet and boggy, and walkers are advised to make sure that they have good waterproof footwear and gaiters. The route is about 4.5 miles long and will take between 3 and 4 hours to complete.
Well, I just thought I'd stop for a bit of a rest. It's quite tough, this ridge. Riggindale doesn't come to any kind of a summit, but a lot of today's ascent is taken on the ridge. So I'm just looking now back down towards the car park where my vehicle's parked. Wonderful views opening up. A little bit of snow on the tops. Not very much. Right, well, I'm almost at the top of Riggindale. As I've said, it's not really a summit. It just kind of peters out, levels off, and then there's a little bit of a dip before you get to the final ascent of High Street, which is that ridge that you can see in front of you now. So today's walk originally was planned to go over Ill Bell here. Used to be called Hill Bell, but they dropped the H for some reason. But I think, given the way the sunshine is looking and my level of fitness, I'll probably go around here to Kidsey Pike. And then come along this, what looks like quite a grassy flank, back down to HAWESWATER. which is the reservoir lake you can see there. Now, HAWESWATER is a reservoir, has been for very many years, but I think there are moves now to decommission it, and a lot of interest now in rewilding the whole area. So if I show you now, so over in this valley here, I think the plan in future is to take possession of the land which is currently tenanted by sheep farmers and rewild it. I'm not sure what my feelings are about that. So I think it's a splendid landscape as it is, and it doesn't really need to be interfered with. But this is happening in other parts of the lakes as well. It's happening over in the west in Ennerdale. Ennerdale Water is another one of those lakes which has been modified over the years to become a reservoir. What they do is they put a dam at one end and allow the water to build up. And in fact, HAWESWATER is famous for its commissioning, which involved the loss of an entire village. I'll perhaps show you later when I come down where the car is parked. That car park I showed you earlier is in fact located right where a village used to be. And in fact, in times of drought, a few years ago, there was a very severe drought and the water level in HAWESWATER fell very low. And some of the buildings that were part of this village, a church, I believe, became exposed and became quite a spectacle. But it's interesting, isn't it, how in times past, whole communities were uprooted in the cause of development. I'm not sure that this would be tolerated today when you look at the protests that we have against any kind of infrastructure development in this country. It's quite interesting to look back on our past and on the changes that were made, often at the expense of communities that had to be relocated and their properties were compulsorily purchased and the like. We've seen that recent problem with HS2 and the fact that it's now been abandoned, and a lot of property which had been compulsorily purchased is now not going to be used for the purpose of the railway line. People are quite naturally incensed by it. But in the past, we used to press ahead with infrastructure developments. Now, I'm afraid, we start them and then we're not quite sure, are we, whether there's enough public acceptance to complete them. But it's interesting that some of these reservoirs being decommissioned is a surprise, isn't it? Because we are short of water in this country, and yet some of our long-standing reservoirs are being decommissioned. Interesting development. I guess the cost of building pipes that take water from the north where it's in abundance to the south where it's in short supply is just too expensive. So it's not really entertained. Anyway, enough of my waffle. I'm going to carry on with my walk now and continue my route, which is down to that gate there and then over the top to the final peak of Riggindale. So catch you later. Right, well, as I come down this little dip into what is quite a small saddle, I can see the steep ridge that leads to the top of High Street. You can see it's quite craggy. I've done it before, but I don't really think I'm fit enough to take it on, which is very frustrating. If it were the summer and I had a very long day, lots of daylight, I'd probably take the risk, because you could have a bit of a rest if you ran out of steam. But today in February, it'll be dark by 6 o'clock. It's probably not a good idea for me to take it on. My knees are playing up a little bit, and you just don't know how much fuel you've got in the tank when you get to my age. You just can't rely on your body, and it's easy to bite off more than you can chew. So I was going to share with you, wasn't I, when I got to the top of High Street, some facts, or as Steve Wright, the famous DJ, would have put it, some factoids. He's very famous for his factoids, but it doesn't really seem appropriate now because I'm not going to get to the top. Maybe when I get back to the van, I'll share with you some of the information that I dug up about High Street, why it's called High Street, a bit of its history. But right now I've got to focus on getting out of the wind and find somewhere to eat my sandwiches. I'm going to go down, I think, hopefully by a path that is on the other side of this little tarn here. It's a path I've not used before, but it will take me down into the tarn here, get me out of the wind, and gives me a fairly quick route back to the car. You can see over there on Ill Bell, it's clouding over a little bit, and that's upwind of me, so we could lose the sunshine in the next hour or so, which would make my decision not to carry on all the more appropriate. So I'll catch you later, folks. So here we are at the point where I leave the path going up to High Street. It's such a pity I don't feel strong enough to do it, but I have to be thankful that I can still do some of these high walks. A lot of people of my age can't, including my dear wife. So I'm going to go down here now to the tarn. Hopefully I'll be able to slip out of the wind just before I go into the shadow. I'd like to sit in the sunshine and have my sandwiches. It's all too easy to be preoccupied by the limitations of a walk, the fact that I can't complete the route today, but just look at it. It's just glorious, absolutely glorious. A lot of interest now going on in the sky, which I always enjoy, as long as it doesn't lead to rain, of course. Looking very wild and angry over there. And as you come round here, absolutely nothing. This is something about the lakes that people forget. The weather can vary from one mountain peak to another. There's nothing general about a weather forecast in the Lake District. You can have glorious weather like this in one place, and then a few miles apart it can be overcast. If you look at that ridge up there, anyone walking on there now will be in mist, and it might even be raining or snowing. It'll only be a flurry briefly, but it just demonstrates the point, doesn't it, that the weather is so changeable. Okay, so I'll see you in a moment. Sun keeps going in and out while I sit here having some sandwiches. When the sun's out, it's warm. When it goes in, it's pretty cold. Some factoids then about High Street. High Street is probably the flattest, grassiest ridge running north-south in the Lake District. Runs all the way from, well, not a high street, but the road, the old Roman road on High Street runs all the way from Ambleside pretty much through to Penrith, about 20 miles or so. And it's one of the few mountaintops that's got not just an archaeological history, but it's got a social history as well. It's been used, would you believe, as a race course in the past. In the 1700s and the 1800s, they used to have summer fairs on the top of High Street, and local villagers would climb the fell, and they would have a lot of activities on the top, which included horse racing. And many centuries before that, in the time of the Roman occupation of the British Isles, there was a Roman road that also ran along the top, including High Street, a Roman road that ran all the way from Ambleside to Penrith. And Wainwright, in his book, when he describes High Street, he says that To the uninformed fell walker, High Street is very dull and boring, and one wouldn't waste any time on its top. But to the informed, he says, listen, watch, look, and perhaps think on all the people who frequented that top in the past. Roman troops coursing their way from the fort in Ambleside, the ruins of which are still able to be seen. So if you're in Ambleside with nothing to do, go and seek out the ruins of the Roman fortification. And the road used to run all the way from there to Penrith. No fortifications actually on High Street itself, but it's a very straight route. It's a route I'd like to walk one day, but you'd need to park at one end and have the ability to get transport at the other, because you end up 20 miles from your starting point. It's not a circular route, but it is very noteworthy in the history of this country. And what's also interesting is that the reason the Romans chose this ridge, this high ground for the road, was because the valleys in those days were full of trees. Temperate rainforests used to be very much the look and the feel of this landscape. And there were lots of marauding Celts who would ambush anyone trying to use the paths down in the valleys. And so the Romans decided that they would build their road from a higher vantage point, and in that way make it a lot safer for their troops. But as a thoroughfare built by the Romans, it was exploited much later on by the Scots, who tried to invade from the north down into the southern lakes, and they used that very same route. So High Street was built by the Romans and then used many centuries later by the Scots. And needless to say, the Scots didn't really have any success. So if ever you get to the top of High Street, do ponder, do give a thought to its illustrious history. Right, well, I'm going to pack up now and get myself back to the warmth and the security of my van. See you later. I didn't get my camera set up quickly enough. There was wonderful light coming across this valley just now. The sun's gone in. Just can't act quickly enough in this cold weather. But it's still quite splendid, this view here, as I come down towards the tarn. On this side here, you can see it's very moody and grim, brightened by the snow on the fell over there. And then looking towards, well, you can't actually see HAWESWATER, but it's around the corner to the left there. And I've got to walk back to those trees that you can see in front of me. That's pretty much where the car is parked. Doesn't feel quite so difficult, this descent, but I had a lot of trouble going up. It's very craggy. Riggindale. I'm wondering if the sun will pop out again. I'll have to see. Hopefully this is a little bit better. A bit more sunshine, although it's gone in again. I'll give up. So much for the tribulations of mice and men. Well, this is a very uninspiring weir here. Often these have some rapids running out from tarns, but here we've got something that's man-made. I think I said earlier that United Utilities, the water utility company, have got quite an interest in HAWESWATER, but I shouldn't have thought this tarn as well. So I'm almost back at the car now, just crossed the river that connects the fell with the car park and the road out of HAWESWATER. It's been a great day. I've enjoyed the sunshine and I'm very much looking forward to the start of spring, which is in a couple of days' time. Bit of a pity I didn't get to the top of High Street, but there it is. I'm getting older now and I have to be cautious about my capabilities. So if you're still with me at the end of this video, then do join me again for another Walking the Fells of Great Britain. If you're interested in the route, then that's in the notes and comments section for this video. And so until next time, I bid you farewell, and do join me again for another episode of the Fells of Great Britain. Bye for now.